Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this live. Today is day 30 of the 90-day poetry writing challenge. Yes, day 30. I'm 1/3 of the journey. And yes, it is Amanda Jones. Let me say thank you to Common Sense makeup artist Anastasia Charles for the look today. So tribute goes to her and the work that she did for me today. Yeah, so what am I writing about today, or what did I write about today? Well, folks, if you didn't know, today is International Podcast Day. So I am writing a bit on that. I wrote a bit on that. And I just like to share some information on what it's all about. Yeah, I see Angel's icon came up there. Showing support for the podcast day, and he is a podcaster. So let's do this. It's called International Podcast Day. Every year since its inception, there's an International Podcast Day celebration. Today, September 30th, marks that day in which the power of podcasting is put on display. This year's call to action has been to start the conversation. This is a call that is deemed quite worthy, since podcasts has been proven to give your voice visibility. Podcast has been described as radio on demand, since its accessibility is right within the palm of your hands. It isn't limited to broadcasting strength like radio. It's downloadable content to take along wherever you may go. Once you do so via a compatible media player, such as iTunes or Sticher, you can choose to be a subscriber to hear more of whichever topic you desire. Podcasting represents a community of individuals sharing a common interest. And this is what I saw firsthand at the 2017 Podfest. Krimitsos and his team carried high the torch of podcasting when they took it further with some documenting. If you want a peek into the world of podcasters, then you should check out their documentary, The Messengers. Podcasting as a global reaching medium for entertainment and education truly deserves this day of celebration. So, as I said, today is International Podcast Day, and it's a celebratory thing. It's also meant to bring awareness as well. And I'll invite Angel Jones, podcast host of the 12-Minute Convos, to just step in.
Oh, yeah, so it's International Podcast Day, hashtag International Podcast Day. Just wanted to jump in and say happy International Podcasting Day. Yeah, good stuff. My podcast is 12-Minute Convos, and you could get more of that at 12minuteconvos.com. And I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Yeah. Trisha.
Hi, Trisha. Something I came across when I was doing my research on International Podcast Day, and is the idea that podcasts expose us to people, ideas, and parts of the world we never thought we'd meet. So, how has that experience been for you? Is that true?
Yeah, most definitely. Like this morning, I spoke to one lady. Was that this morning? No, yesterday morning I spoke to one lady in Belgium and then another guy in Turkey. And it's because of the medium of podcasting. And obviously what has been accomplished by... but no, even without accomplishments, like you could jump on there and do your podcast in whatever is your own unique real self. And most definitely, you'll connect to your audience. And in so doing, you'll connect to the people that are leading that audience and have an opportunity to share. So, yeah, I've been able to connect to people from all over the world. Even with Podfest, right? We connected with Chris and we went across for Podfest 2017, which was amazing, right? And it spoke to the family element that goes with being a podcaster. It's definitely family. I remember we met Harry Duran there and so many others. I wouldn't begin to call names. But yeah, podcasting has definitely connected us to amazing people. Hail out to Mike Koala as well in Tampa. Like, if we started to say names.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of names that we could mention, but I think there's one.
Yes.
Yeah, because you reaching 1,001 conversations was inspired by a particular podcaster, a particular type of podcast.
Yeah.
So just share a little bit on that.
Right, so there's this podcast I listen to while at work. His name is John Lee Dumas, and he has a podcast called Entrepreneur on Fire, EO Fire, and you could get that at eofire.com. And yeah, the idea is to, like, he's the master of podcaster. He has a lot of episodes, and at the end of 2017, he'll be at 1,897, and currently I'm in a sprint to beat his episode count before the end of 2016 for two reasons. Because one being I love great conversations, and the second being I told this young lady here that I would beat Johnny Dumas's episode count. Of course, Johnny Dumas is doing his thing, and he isn't. He's not even bothered by what I'm doing, but it's just my competitiveness and wanting to beat this guy's record. So that's going on.
But it's all in good fun.
It is. So I mean, big up to Johnny Dumas and all that he does and the inspiration that he brings.
Yeah.
Do you have another question? You're doing a great job.
No, I don't want to put just whatever you want, whatever you have on your heart. If it is for someone who's up and coming in the podcast, somebody who wants to start a podcast, because like I started at one point in time and then I stopped, but I'm thinking about doing it again. So if you had to speak to someone who was thinking about doing podcast, what advice would you give to that person?
I would say start. And so many people like if you go to the International Podcasting Day website, they're streaming live, and so many people are reiterating that it's so important to start. And as you get going,
thanks, Don.
And as you get going, that what will happen is you'll get better. So yeah, I would say start. And if you need help, there are so many things on the internet in terms of information. Yeah, if you need my help, yeah, definitely message me. Let me know if you're interested. I could point you in a few directions. But I think it's about telling your story, and there's so many people that need to hear your story, and sometimes we forget that. And sometimes we think we're living a challenge by ourselves. But believe me, there are many of us that are going through the same challenge as well. And if you begin to share your story, and so many other people connect with it, and then who knows what can occur.
Okay, interesting. A lot of people think that you need to have a big studio and all this setup in terms of mic and equipment.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
No, it's no big setup. Like our setup is pretty cool. It's not high end. It's probably mid. But yeah, it's not. Hey, you could start a podcast with your laptop, and you could start a podcast with a recorder. Hey, you could starting a podcast isn't something that requires a huge studio. So yeah, like so our setup is mic, audio interface, laptop. Yeah. So the internet is cutting in and out. Sorry about that, folks.
Yeah. So the important thing, the gist of it is to start, but I would say that sound quality has some importance because
It is. Well, according to what you're doing, I think because there's some podcasts that I listen to and I actually like to hear the background noises, songs.
yeah.
Like it piques my interest, but my ears are pretty sensitive. But yeah, some people, crappy song will definitely, it's earbuds most times. So crappy
Yeah.
song wouldn't be too good on the earbuds. So yeah.
As someone described it, you're being very intimate with my ear.
Yeah.
You know, as a podcast listener.
Yeah.
So I would think that you would want the quality to be one that actually caresses the ear, more or less.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're going to wrap up this little live today,
Yes.
International Podcast Day. Podcast host of the 12-minute convos, that's Angel Jones. And thanks for sharing with us.
It was my pleasure bombing your Facebook Live. Boom.
That's okay. And thanks again, those of you who were locked on. Dawn, thank you. Kathy, Mitzi, Trisha, Alicia, pleasant good evening to you all, and do enjoy the rest of your evening.
Whoop, whoop.
Bye.